of the first part of this this exercise. The idea today, this afternoon actually, is to be very hands-on, to be very concrete, and we will succeed. And if you comes back home with some new ideas, these ideas will be presented to you by several speakers here very quickly. We will have some very short time presentation from everyone. So I would ask every speaker to be ready to come quickly to the podium so that we can hear them, we can hear all of them. They will present you new kind of writing, new kind of journalism. This session is the Renaissance session. Hopefully we will have some ideas again. And for the first presentation, I will ask Chiqui Esteban from La Información to present us some new element on visual journalism. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. When I talk about data visualization and visual journalism, everybody thinks on things like this one. But this is not what we do. We do things like this one. This was made in 1854, I think. Some of you may know this graphic. This was done not by a journalist, but by a doctor. He wanted to demonstrate that cholera is spread by water. And it was something not everybody knew. So when London suffered an epidemic of cholera, he drops all those dots where people were dying and the crosses where there were pumps of water. And he demonstrated that one particular fountain in Broad Street was the cause of the cholera, and the water was to blame for the spread, because the dots which were nearer to other pumps happened to be for people who worked on Broad Street or passed by there every day. So this is what we have to do: is to demonstrate information and show information, not only or not in a beautiful way. This is secondary. That we have to put the data, put the graphics, and put the information so everybody can see what is happening. And this is all, but the fountain is still there. You can visit it in Broad Street in London. But the same system is used now. This is by the Washington Post in 2010. Visualizing the crimes committed with guns bought in a particular gun store in Virginia. So we think data visualization and all those things are new things, but we keep doing the same that 200 years ago. So the main question is, what for the visual journalist? Why are we using it? For particular things: to explain, to show pattern and trends, to provide global and local information, to provide personal information, and to be different. If we want to explain, how did Spain win the World Cup? Then we can show all the passes. You can click on a particular player and see how he played, compare it with the different teams of France and Argentina, and you can see game by game how they played. If they play with the strikers, if the midfield was important, if it was in the wings, or if you want to explain the European crisis, this is something very difficult. Well, maybe a graphic can explain it better than an article. And this was made by the New York Times, and you can click on the different button and you can see how it all the possible scenarios, and you really got an idea of what's happening. It was the first time I really understood a piece of the European crisis, was watching this graphic. Oops, sorry. It's also used to show patterns and trends, the who and the where. And this is a very concrete question: which is the most balanced university when we talk about wages of professor and the president? Okay, then you can know it because you have the dots, and on the horizontal axis you got the wage of the president, and in the vertical axis the average wage of a professor. So that particular dot is the one where the president is paid much more than the professor, and it is an extreme. And you can click on every on them, and you can see the the opposite one is Harvard, which is the one, the blue dot outside, and you can look for your own university and see all the pattern and how it works. Or where can I go to Spain by train easily? Well, you have this graphic. It's a time map of the trains in Spain. Connection is tricky, so I don't know. I won't try to play it here. But you had the geographical map of Spain. You click on a button, and it shows the real time map of the trains. Each one of the circles is 30 minutes. So you have Madrid, and you can know how long it will take you by train to go to any other Spanish province or capital of the province, and you can even click and see how many trains, how much is the ticket. Compare this with traveling by car, and provide local information. If you don't have enough people to do local information, but it's something important for you, this can be done with a graphic. This is a graphic about all the senators and all the representatives in the Congress in United States, and you can see clicking on each of the states or inside the states on each of the districts, who was what vote on each particular topic, and this was one of the screen. It's a positionometer, how Republican or how Democrat their decision has been in the voting. So you can click on your own district, or you can see the complete pattern in the United States. Or you can even have not just local information, but personal information. This was about which is the best Spanish soccer team. Somebody will say Real Madrid, somebody will say Barcelona, and somebody will say Deportivo as me, because I support Deportivo, but it's not true. So people had the chance to give their own values to the different trophies. So you can say, okay, for me the league is a 3, the Champions is a 5, the King's Cup is a 2, and with your punctuations, with your own valuation, you can build a graphic showing which one is the best one. With my valuation, it was Real Madrid, although I support more Barcelona, but what can we do? And to be different, there are some things that only can be explained through graphics and through visual journalism. This was done by the New York Times, explaining how robots think, and they explaining it playing rock, paper, scissors with the robot. You play with him, and it was explaining how the robot was learning to play and how to win the game. Or also, in Spain 2 years ago, somebody said that the CIA's or the FBI, I don't know, I think it was the CIA photo by the Bin Laden released, was built using the hair of the communist leader, the Spanish communist leader, Gaspar Llamazares. So everybody say, no, it's not true. I would say, yes, it's true, and you can click on it and move the sliders and show that it was really the same hair. They used nobody knew why the CIA had the photograph of the communist leader of Spain, but they used it to build Bin Laden's face. So 3 cases of media that are using visual journalism. In a right way, I think. The Boston Globe has recently changed their design to the responsive design. You may know all the case. They have Boston.com, which was a regular news site, maybe a bit messy, and they wanted to do BostonGlobe.com. So what they do, it was a responsive design grid. And they just have to design the page once. And it will fit the screen of the laptop or the computer, the screen of the iPad or any other tablet, and the screen of the mobile. You see here the same page in 3 different whites. When you're on your computer and you move the size of the browser, you can see how it changes. So you just have to think on what to tell, not how to tell it for mobiles. I have to do something different for iPads. I have to do something different for the. So you just mind about journalism and what to tell. As we used to say in innovation, is the wine, it's not the bottle. So here we have the wine being adapted to different bottles and working anyway. I asked Javier Zarracina, which is the who is the graphics director at the Boston Globe, how it was working. I say that since they have bostonglobe.com and the responsive design and everything, despite of being, well, not despite, but they have been named the world's best designer newspaper and all that, but they also have a queue of companies trying to be advertised on the Boston Globe. They don't have space for all the advertisements they have, but they are growing in money. It's something that is not very usual nowadays. At Innovation, we are also working with Eurosport. They wanted the visual journalists to be something done daily, but they didn't have people to do it. So we built for them something not for a special occasion, but for every day. We built, little widgets with bars, with profiles, with fields. So the journalists can just fill a form, and they'll get the most basic kind of graphics for everyday news. But also we do big graphics for them. If there's a special occasion, we created this graphic. It works also on iPad and in computer, so you can pick two cars and compare them, and you can play with the slider to compare and move the car and compare with the difference. So it's at 2 paces speed with the day-to-day, and for a special occasion you can make something good. And also Información.com, where I work, we try to use the visual journalist as the soul of media. It's 3 years old, and we have built more than 3,000 graphics, and we are a department of just 2 people. So we want graphics every day. We have even our homepage for graphics, and if you see the figures of every year, every single year since its creation, in the top 10 articles of every year, 6, 7 are graphics, and usually the top 5 are graphics. So it is working for us. We are a small media compared with El País and El Mundo, but we are struggling and surviving because we offer something different than the other are not offering, and this is done with visual journalists. So 2 keys for do that is treat visual journalists as journalists. If you're working in a newspaper or in media, you have to work as a journalist. This is not about being pretty. This is about explaining in a more effective way. And be already prepared for what's next. This is what I was saying. I was used to hear everything to everybody who came to graphics to ask for things. I want something pretty, I want something funny. I say, no. Tell me what you want to explain, and we'll do something. But I don't know if it will be pretty, I don't know if it will be funny, but we will explain what you want. And I think that's because everybody has to trust you. Sorry. And to do that, I was telling you that in Información we are just 2 in the department. Everybody has to think visually. We have to propose things in the morning meetings, but also the rest of the newsroom has to tell us how they imagine the graphics. Maybe we are changing all the idea they have, but everybody is committed on that. And sometimes the best visual ideas come from people who doesn't work on visuals. Some of the best graphics we have done have been ideas from developers. So developers should be also interested in that. We are doing a lot of code, but we are 2. We don't have a very big development team, but everybody should do code. In innovation, the principle is one programmer for every 5 journalists. But I also think that maybe you don't have to be an expert in code, but you have to understand how it works. Because if you want to propose, if you want to have ideas, if you want to know if something is possible or not, you got at least to know how it works to have these ideas, to propose, to know if something is possible or not, and how much time it will take. If if you know now in newspapers how they are printed and you know how to use Quark, you at least have to have a small idea about coding. And things needs to play and touch. Now, as we were hearing, mobile and tablets are not next at now. So think also how you can play with it. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chiqui, and I like your title, which is not very frequent in the news industry, which is a visual editor. It's in English, at least, it's quite rare. Quick question: what's your secret to make very different people work together? I mean, journalists working with developer, working with designer or graphist. How do you make them work together?
Well, in La Información, where I work day to day, all the newsroom is 30 people, so we are obligated to collaborate if we want to have something. But in the case of graphics, I think it's easy, because everybody wants to do graphics. Journalists are eager to do graphics. The design people want to do graphics. The coders, the programmers also find more entertaining to do graphics than to write a lot of lines of code. So they want to do it. And they really see that it works. Because as I told you, the figures of the graphics compared with another kind of news in La Información are working really well. So they know if they do something as a graphic, it will work better than a text. So they've learned something, the journalists, I mean the writers, because so journalists are all of us, that they don't have to write a story. They just have to think on a story, and between all of us, we will decide how is the best way to show it. If it's just a text, if a text with a video, if it's an interactive multimedia, or if it's a graphic. And as we have been journalists with them, we have been care about the information and not about things looking pretty, they trust us when we say, okay, this is the best way. So we earned their trust, and we trust them with their stories, and everybody respect each other. So if the coder tells me this is not possible, I don't think he's trying to skip his job. I really trust him, and if I say this is not a graphic, the writer will trust me, and I think this is the basis for that.
Thank you. I think it's a very important contribution. I'm also a strong believer in visual journalism, and you're right. Your figures are quite right. It's the same in the US, where some graphics of the New York Times made more clicks than a lot of articles. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now Benoît Raphael. Benoît Raphael is one of the French media inventor. He was editor of the Le Poste, which was a Le Monde subsidiary until Huffington Post bought it some months ago. And he's now a social media creator and consultant based in Paris and sometimes in New York. Benoît?
So good afternoon. I don't know if I don't have any mouse or any tool to.
Tu as un cliqueur sur le truc,
No. Ah, sorry. So just do that. I hope it's working. Okay, so I'm Benoît Raphael. I'm the Vice President of Red Square France, and Red Square is a consulting company based in New York, Montreal, and Paris. So when I was a child, I had a lot of ideas. I was even a leader around my bunch of friends, but I was a very, very shy person. And worse, when I was very nervous, I sometimes stammered. So I decided to become a journalist in a radio station. And you can imagine, you can't imagine my first interview. I was so terrified that I couldn't even think about my question. Of course, I began to stammer during the interview. And last but not least, I realized that after the interview that I had forgotten to press the record button. So I was this kind of guy. It was not easy for me to talk to people, but that didn't mean that I had nothing to say. I had a lot of things to say to the world, and now I'm here, so I'm very happy. I think that all through my career as a journalist, I've been dedicated to the idea that of giving a voice to people and helping them express themselves and to be heard. Even when I worked at a local newspaper in France, I was convinced that media was not just about delivering news to people in a one-way direction. I always saw the production of news as a mutually fulfilling relationship between a news professional and regular people. So you can imagine how excited I was when the internet started to change the industry of news, especially when people started to blog. Suddenly millions of people, witnesses, analysts, self-made columnists were adding new voices to the news. So when in 2007, when the newspaper Le Monde asked me to co-create an ambitious participative media for news called The Post, I tried to follow my conviction. Journalism can help great ideas spread, can help new voices to rise up, and can encourage people, even the less educated, to be involved in news production and curation. Just because you are less educated doesn't mean that you have nothing to say or to share. So at Le Post, thousands of citizens worked with 10 journalists to produce and curate engaging stories, and it was a huge success, 3.2 million unique visitors a month, according to Nielsen, after only 2 years of existence. And back then, people were already saying that citizen participation was crap. But with Le Post, we proved something, that managing a participative media was not just about giving a mic to people and saying, express yourself. It was about recruiting a team of journalists and training them to raise new voices, new ideas, and new testimonies among the people. It was real journalistic work. So at that time, the TV channel CNN, you know this project, launched iReports, a citizen witness media where people can send in their videos and photos to be published on the web and broadcasted on TV. It was a huge success, 15,000 contributions a month, and 7% of the submissions are broadcasted. And now iReport is fully integrated with the official website. Citizen content does add real value to the news coverage, coverage by journalists. And CNN also understood that turning social as a media was not just about asking people to participate. It was a real job for journalists. At CNN, a team of journalists work within the community to verify, edit, and curate content from all over the world. And because they do that, they can bring exclusive images and testimonies to their audience. And remember, even for CNN, the goal is not to have free content delivered by amateurs. It's always a matter of adding value, a matter of bringing together more relevance and better quality content to the community. So when I left Le Post in 2010, I tried to go further. I had the chance to create a new social media platform for the first French news magazine, Le Nouvel Observateur. The name of this new platform is Le Plus, meaning plus, meaning adding value to traditional news, adding the people's voice to the news. So it was launched in 2011, and Le Plus is a newsroom of 6 journalists plus a community manager in charge of the moderation. The concept emerged from the conviction that a lot of interesting ideas and great voices can't be heard because people don't have the time or the opportunity to express themselves. We thought that it was the mission of a journalist, helped by the community, to find these voices. So it was completely not about having a team of bloggers, and I apologize to them and to myself because I'm also a blogger. Bloggers are not especially the most interesting people to be heard, and well, they can be heard everywhere on other media. Bloggers are just people who have time to write, and of course they have some talent. But the most interesting people might be hidden. They might have just one thing to say one time in their life, so they don't need to have a blog. And most of the time, they don't have the time or the energy or maybe the vocabulary to express themselves. At Le Plus, the journalists go meet these experts, columnists, and witnesses, and assist them in writing stories. Again, it was a great success, with 1.4 million unique visitors on Nielsen after 8 months, with more than 10% of the traffic coming from Facebook and Twitter. And the key to success for participative journalism is to go to your contributors. Train them, ensure their skills, and interact with them using mail, phone, Skype, or social networks. Meet them in person when you can. You can meet them in a cafe, invite them into the world of news by organizing events and meetings. Well, that said, I know that the best places for socializing around the news are Facebook and Twitter. I love them. I'm always on Twitter and Facebook, but please don't try to be Facebook or Twitter. I've heard too many media saying that we are going to be the Facebook of news, and sports media saying we are going to be the Facebook of sports, and financial media recently that want to be the Facebook for finance, and so on. The problem is that media are not social networks. They are medias. So instead of trying to be a social network, you'd better off to use social network to improve the media experience. So the cheapest way is to use them as a collaborative tool, just like the NPR does, the radio, the national radio of USA. And hear what Andy Carvin, senior strategist at the NPR, says about Twitter. What I find Twitter most useful for is seeing my Twitter followers as my newsroom. When I'm trying to capture what's going on in Syria, my Twitter followers come out the woodwork and they translate for me, they do research for me, they track shipping lanes and flights going in and out for airports. It's incredible the skills that people bring to the table. Another media I created this year for the French radio station Europe 1 was a huge engagement on Twitter. Has a huge engagement on Twitter. Le Lab is the name of this pure player, laboratory. It's all based on curation, such as finding exclusive documents on the web, and benefits from the participation of users on Twitters. 15% of the traffic of Le Lab is coming from Twitter. You can also use social network to bring personalization to your users or to reach younger readers. And since the end of 2011, you can now create your own media on Facebook. The Guardian social reader is well known on Facebook. It's the best example of all. It's actually Guardian content, but the hierarchy is ruled by your social graph, by what your friends share and like on Facebook. So it costs little money, actually. But it was a huge success for The Guardian. 8 million people have downloaded the application in just a few months, and traffic from Facebook exploded, allowing The Guardian to reach a younger audience. Yes, but no. Of course, you own the traffic made on Facebook, but you don't control it. So the future of your social media depends on the will of a private company. So it's got little money, so it's not very important. But, well, bad news. Last month's changes in Facebook timeline made the traffic of the social readers, especially Guardian social reader, fall dramatically. Well, so what's next? Television is next. And so the difference between television and newspaper is that people never stopped watching TV, but they did start to talk about it a lot on the internet and share its best moments. People don't stop what they are doing to watch television. Now they use a second screen, mobile or tablet, to interact with friends or directly with a TV show. And when you think about TV as a social media, you realize that it's not so different from what happens with newspaper online. You can integrate people's voices to bring more relevant content to the show. Many shows now integrate social activities into their program, but most of all, they are just encouraging people to talk about a TV show on Twitter. And yet some media go further and successfully integrate people's participation in their program. The TV show has become a part of a wider experience that begins on a mobile app or website that can bring in a larger experience through social network. So when Oprah Winfrey created her own TV channel, she lost most of her audience, but she used the internet to gain more audience and virality for her show. With our new show Live Class, Opera interacts with our audience on social networks doing the TV program. People can comment and vote on Twitter and Facebook. And during the program, big screens show a selection of tweets or comments on Facebook. They are created by journalists, so Oprah can address them during the show. And she also used Skype and Instagram, and now millions of users from all over the world watch her show online. Same idea with The Stream, a social TV show created in 2011 by the new TV news channel Al Jazeera. And so, well, to conclude, this example show a first step for reverse publishing on TV, a social ecosystem of news and conversation where the live show is just a piece of a cycle. It may be the strongest piece, the most mainstream piece, but it is seen more as a federative event for all the community than a single one-way product. Remember, integrating people to the production of content means more relevant content, more engagement, more virality, and at minimum, more audience for your products, more traffic. So it's not about letting people talk. It's about being successful in a connected world where people want to be part of what they read or watch. So social media is not social network. It's a media, and it's not free. It costs money, but it can bring you more traffic and more virality. So it's about working as journalists with your contributors, and that's the key of success. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoît. Just a quick question. You said, yes, you got some great success. You mentioned a huge audience. But there are still some big question marks about the business model, because advertisers still are very reluctant to put some advertisements besides social media. What can be done next to encourage them?
Well, I think that the key is and we have the example with Le Plus for Le Nouvel Observateur, because Le Plus is totally integrated in the brand Le Nouvel Observateur. So it is sold as content of Le Nouvel Observateur. So there is no difference, and all the content on Le Plus has been verified and edited by journalists. So they sell it the same price. So I think that is very important. And then you can also innovate with social media, and I'm working right now with L'Express on their social platform to improve it. And one of their business models is to work on special operation, so they can build specific media with a community for a brand, for women, for instance, so we can work with L'Oréal to test some products. So you can use social media as a real tool for special operation. And we know right now, if you want to increase the price of the advertising, you need to go on with special operation.
Thanks a lot. We'll continue on social media with Jean-Jacques Roth from RTS, from Switzerland. Jean-Jacques.
Right. Thank you, Rick.
This is your call.
Good afternoon. I was told to speak in French just to honor the language of François Hollande, but I think it will be more convenient in English. So I have French here, and I try in English here. A very short presentation of a new program on the Swiss French-speaking radio that's called En Ligne Direct. It's a 3-month-old experience. And the new in the thing is that we try to mix the traditional radio and the social networking. How? It was between 8 and 8:30 on the radio program, French-speaking radio program, public service in Switzerland, a traditional discussion talk show between experts and politicians on topics issued from the news. And we had the impression that that sort of talk was a little bit, you know, not boring, but a little bit used, and we had the impression that always the same politicians and experts were coming to speak, and we had the intuition that there are a lot of people very interesting in all the sectors of society, but it's very hard to get them on the radio. So we decided to make an entirely new program, and every day we have a topic, we have a question, and at 6 o'clock the day before, on the radio, we announce the topic of the program of the next day. For example, should we intervene militarily in Syria, or should we pay more for the healthcare? Any various topics, any ideas, any themes of actuality. And then we go on Twitter, and we launch the debate on Twitter already in the evening. And we have a community manager, and he's animating the Twitter debate all the evening. And the morning, at 8 o'clock, the next morning, we open the radio program, and we have the tweets. The community manager comes on the radio and says how was the debate on the Twitter, on the community. And we have people on the phone, very traditionally, that come directly on the radio program to give their opinion. And we have 1 or 2 experts on the phone as well. And so we have a combination between experts, politicians, the authority people, anybody that come on the phone, all the people that have tweeted the day before. And we have launched a new application, I will show you, which is very original. This is a web application, and you can record on that application directly on your phone your statement, and you push it to the server on the radio, and we have a studio quality sound that we can put on the program at 8 o'clock. So you have 3 levels of intervention during the program. You have the statements that the people have pushed thanks to the application. You see here the application. You just have to push on the red button. You record your statement, you push it, and it's in the radio with a very high quality sound. So we can have that sound on the radio. We can have people on the phone giving their statement and opinion direct. We have the experts, and we have all this mixed that makes a new program. And the idea was to renew also the audience of the radio, which is going, in all the countries, older and older in the general programs. And after 3 months, we have really new experts coming in the radio, and we have new people giving their statements. And I think this is a very interesting new mix between social medias and radio, which is a rather conservative technological universe in the medias. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Very, very simple, but very convincing. Just one question: do you have the right to say Twitter on the radio and the TV?
It's a problem. We say social media, social network.
Okay.
Everybody normally should understand.
You don't expect any progress on that issue soon?
No, we don't want it. We are a public service. So Facebook and Twitter are commercial. Commercial.
You don't. No, well,
so
we want.
We don't make advertisement, but.
Okay, thank you. Fearnley, hi. You are the General Manager News and Knowledge at the BBC, and you can say Twitter and Facebook on air. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you will talk about the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
wait for my slides to fit. That's the last slide. You get to see the end before the start. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Phil Fearnley. I'm also responsible for the Digital Olympics. And the story of the Olympics is a story of moments. And BBC's online job is to ensure everyone experiences those moments, wherever they are. So what exactly will BBC Online do? We'll be bringing every sport from every venue to everyone, when they want it and how they want it. For the first time ever, so that our audiences will never miss a moment. There are three things I'm going to talk about this afternoon. I'm going to present the fantastic platform we've built for the Olympic Games, explain what makes our coverage different from anything that's ever gone before, and thirdly, just to show you exactly how we're going to do it. So let's start with what we're building and why it's better than anything that's come before. The simple answer to this is, it's the first time the audience gets total control. And when I say control, I mean it. Control of what sport you watch, when you watch it, control of which device to watch it on. Let me paint a picture for you. It's 4 p.m. on Tuesday, the 7th of August. You could be in Barnsley at work, sneaking a look at your PC, watching Chris Hoy's heat. Or you could be in Swansea at a cafe, watching the race live on your tablet. Or you could be on a train to Aberdeen, following the action on your smartphone. Or at home in Belfast, watching Chris Hoy on your internet-connected TV. This will be happening everywhere, across the UK, throughout the day. It's happening when our audiences choose. And that's what I mean by control. And what is going to give you all of this? Well, the answer is simple. It's BBC Sport. Whether online at bbc.co.uk/sports, or via an app, or via a connected TV. And it's been designed with one aim in mind, and that is that our audience will never miss a moment of the Games. If you take a look back to Beijing in 2008, there were no tablets, there were no apps, there was no internet-connected TV. And watching live video on a mobile phone, in the UK at least, well, let's just say that wasn't a pleasant experience. The point I'm making is that the Olympics is going to be the first truly digital Olympics. What do I mean by that? 24 high-definition live streams of content and 2,500 hours of coverage. Available on PCs, mobiles, tablets, internet-connected TVs and red button. And at the heart of this is live video, the ability to experience an event as it happens. And the BBC is bringing live video like never before. We've reinvented the experience of watching big events live and online. Let's show you what I mean. Should we try that one again with sound?
This is an Olympics like no other. We want to make sure you get the most out of this once-in-a-lifetime event. So we've created a live, interactive video player that allows you to watch every moment of the games. So here's...
We'll try it once more with sound. It's better in sound, I tell you. Shall I try again?
This is an Olympics like no other, and we want to make sure you get the most out of this once-in-a-lifetime event. So we've created a live, interactive video player that allows you to watch every moment of the games. So here's how it works. Imagine you're watching the 5,000 metres live and you decide you want to see the triple jump that was on earlier. All you do is click and you instantly rewind back to the moment you want to watch. Once you've caught up, jump back to the here and now by clicking on live. You're straight back into the action. And at any time go full screen and the player delivers the action in HD. Then there's the extras button. Click on this and you'll find lots of great information. If you're watching the track cycling and are wondering what the different events are, the sport guide will tell you. Then there's Olympics Live. Turn it on and it will alert you to all the key moments from around the game so you never miss anything that matters. And with the athletes panel, if you're watching the rowing and want in-depth info about one of the rowers, then this feature is here to help. Now there'll be times when up to 24 live events are taking place all at once, so we've arranged everything to make it easy for you to find the best of the action. In short, with the BBC's new live interactive video player, we're giving you complete control of what you want to watch and when you want to watch it. Go to bbc.co.uk/sport to never miss a moment of the Olympic Games on the BBC.
I told you it was better with sound. We think that's absolutely amazing. We're incredibly proud of it, and when we've shown it to our audience in focus groups, they've spontaneously said, that's better than TV. I hope it shows you a flavour of why we think what we're doing is different and why it's better than anything we've done before. And 4 years after Beijing, we're providing 4 times the coverage and on 4 screens. It's not just about more choice from more events covered and the devices you can get to use them on. It's also about ease of use. During the Olympics, there are 36 sports and 304 events. But we know that everyone has got their own favourites. So we've made the navigation as simple as possible. It's 1 click to choose the sport. It's 1 click to access the full medal table. It's 1 click to see the schedule of what's coming up. It's 1 click
5 and 6.
to watch
Could we
any
get 2
live
medals
sports.
here? It looks like it could be athletes. It's going to be the gold medalist. Oh
Yes.
my goodness, it is! Great Britain have won a gold in the swimming pool. A stunning swim. First
And if you're watching
third.
live
First and third
and you're
for
worried
Great
you might
Britain.
miss something,
Driving through, not making a huge effort.
it'll tell you, and with 1 click, you're straight there. In short, we've listened to our audiences and we've incorporated what they've wanted. We've designed it beautifully and we've kept it simple, helping our audiences easily navigate to what they want to see. So if for you the Games is all about swimming, just 1 click, it takes you to create a favourites page for the swimming event. It will show you the latest news, medals and video and scheduling information. And there's another reason this is the digital Games. We're seeing Olympic athletes, commentators engaging the nation on social media, like Twitter and Facebook, and we're bringing these voices to the heart of BBC Sport Online. Finally, I'd like to talk about how we're going to deliver this. We've designed it well. We've built it well. We've put it on a platform that's fit for purpose, and we've tested it every day for months. The BBC has a long and proud record for streaming large events. Here are some examples of those events this summer. The biggest single event we've ever seen was watched by more people simultaneously was the last World Cup, when England played Slovenia. Cracking game, 0-0. Take that, and we're doubling it, and that's what we're planning for the Olympics. As I said, we've tested this on our audience, and the feedback they gave us was they absolutely love it. That's why we can't wait for the opening ceremony, so they can get their hands on it for real. So in conclusion, we saw the Games as an opportunity for us to set a new digital standard, a benchmark of innovation across online, giving audiences an unforgettable Games experience. And much like the Velodrome or the Aquatic Centre in London have been built with a lasting legacy in mind, we built our online experiences to leave a lasting digital legacy for all our audiences, ensuring they continue to never miss a moment of BBC's big online live event coverage for years to come. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Phil. It's amazing. And yeah, we lost the Games. You won the Games. We will do almost the same at France Télévisions for the summer, but not quite. Just a question. How do you cope with a bandwidth problem when you have such an expected traffic coming?
That's probably the first question I ever get asked. Are you worried about the meltdown of the various service providers? There's kind of 2 or 3 things that we do. One is, as I said, we have been doing these events for years, literally years and years and years. So we kind of know how traffic comes to our site. We know when they come to sporting events. We know when they come to major events like the Royal Wedding. We know what the demand is, and we know how they come in and how they go out. And we work very well and very cooperatively with the ISP, the broadband network providers, and the mobile network providers. We're delivering this on 3G as well as via fixed line. So we work with them. We share our traffic patterns, and they know what's happening, and we're very comfortable about it. So that's, if you like, at the industry level, and at the individual household level, we're obviously concerned that we don't consume everybody's bandwidth. We give them the most optimum service we can. So we provide each of our streams in a multitude of bit rates. So when you first go on, you get the lowest level bit rate. We'll sniff out how much your bandwidth in your house can provide, or your bandwidth in your office, and we'll then upscale to a better, richer service for you. So if you've only got 1 meg in the home, we've got a service for that. If you've got 8 meg in the home, we can give you a service which is beautiful HD quality in full screen. So we do this thing, and it's called adaptive bitrate, the technology that sits behind it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sylvain, I think it's your turn. Yes. Sylvain Lapoix is a journalist at OWNI. So Sylvain will talk about fact-checking, which is another new kind of journalism.
And we talked about sports. So one of our goals, I'm Sylvain Lapoix, I'm a journalist for the French information website OWNI.fr, which is a pure player, meaning we don't have so far an extension in regular forms of news, non-digital forms of news. I'm 29, but I learned from the program that was a senior journalist, so you eventually age in this industry. So we covered with OWNI the last big sport event that ran, which was the presidential election of 2012. And indeed, it didn't start that early. No, that's not that. It didn't start that early. We began to think about it 1 year before, in 2011, and we wondered, what should we do that hasn't been done yet in France, and that had been a great success around the world, and especially in the US. And eventually we not copied, but took example from our colleague from the Truthometer of PolitiFact, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 2009 for fact-checking many people. But our main goal was to go through some limits that we were facing. First of which is how to fact-check political speech, but in this case, if I may correct this, how to fact-check French political speech, which is very different. Because in France, political journalism, and I know it for working for 3 years for the French weekly magazine Marianne, which is well known for having a strong political feel. Je reconnais des gens dans la salle. So that there is a tradition in political journalism, which is mainly some kind of Voltaire way of doing things, and a very literary way. Basically, politics is about speech, about attitude, about how you behave and how you get into the function. Getting numbers, marks, and all the facts back into this subject was eventually a limit we had to go through, as we worked with the French television iTélé, which is a full information broadcasting television. So far there were basically 4 types of fact-checking devices in France. First of which, on your left, is the Nouvel Observateur, who took itself example on another US experience, which was, of course, the Pinocchios from the Washington Post. So the idea was having your own mark system for the politicians, and to make occasional fact-checking. So one interview or speech now and then. The other type was the true-false system, which was also used by Truthometer from PolitiFact, on an occasional fact-checking, such as this excellent blog did, Les Décodeurs from Le Monde, or on a different basis, which I would call Everybody Lies Assumption. So who was only fact-checking, that was the line of Desintox at Libération. It was only fact-checking when people actually were saying false, assuming false information. That's something we didn't decide to do, as we don't judge the intention. We don't know if someone lies, because to lie, you have to intentionally say something that is wrong. And when you know the level of some politicians on the economical matters, you never know if they eventually know what is wrong or true. And the last subject is the true-false system, systematic, but applied to a thematic fact-checking. It was the case of Vigi2012.eu, which was a fact-checking site only for the EU-related matters. So here was our choice. Le Véritomètre, who was a partnership between OWNI, so My Media, and iTélé, the full information broadcasting TV, we took the same criteria for the 6 most exposed and influential candidates of the presidential election. Our choice were clear: numbers, numbers, only numbers. Open data sources, we gave the data sources and databases and data visualization open to the public. No theories or projections, bigger speeches and interviews, so not everything, because you can't do everything eventually, even with 5 people, that's the number we were. Complete fact-checking of each intervention. If you start to fact-check something, you fact-check it fully, and open marking system, 100% connected. And so, the idea was that every single intervention was fact-checked with our mark system, with every quote time-coded and sourced, in order to give the readers, give the audience the possibility to fact-check us. Every quote was time-coded, every mark explained and sourced, every source was linked. So that was big work for us, because sometimes we eventually had the information on the data, but we didn't have the open link to disclose it. So sometimes, from the lack of the open data, we had to forfeit, and just to say we couldn't find the open data. And that was one of our basic rules, to make everything clear and crystal clear. But there's a rule you have to learn, and that's one thing we learned. And everybody can take something out of it, is that when you're a data journalist or a web journalist, you should never, ever, 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 ever of your life, ever, never, I insist, I take 3 slides to say it, but it's important, ever assume that your readers won't look that close into your own special mechanics and clockworks, because eventually they always do. What we did is that we decided to make our marks. There was 3 levels of incorrectness, okay? 3 levels of incorrectness, from correct, which was 100%, imprecise, which was 50%, and incorrect, which was 0%. From 0 to 5% of margin of error, it was, from the source we had, it was correct. 5 to 10% margin of error, it was imprecise. Above 10% of error, it was incorrect. And we made some metadata in order to rank the candidates. At the time, we were completely open about it, and we gave marks for every single intervention, and the average of all the intervention was the note of the candidate. And true story, a guy actually redid all the math from all the quotes we fact-checked ourselves, took all our systems and sent us the good way to eventually do the math with the good method and our method. The funny thing was that we wanted to reform ourselves, our way to do this, ranking system and marking system, and he foresees it eventually. So you never tell yourself that they won't look that close, because they always do. So when you've done this, you can eventually realize that we try to make it clearer through funny pics, through motivational. You can here see some very doubtful statistical estimation and data journalism. And that is the rule number 3, data are sourced from well-known organisms. That's motivational we did. And eventually, it didn't work. Basically, people didn't retweet it, people didn't pretty much like it. You don't tell your readers what they have to like or debate about. From there, you just have something left. You better listen to them, and make them your allies. And we have this very interesting case, which is Quentin Giraud. All the intervention we fact-checked were open to comment on the base of a Facebook comment page. And the idea was that Quentin Giraud is a regular Facebook user. He's not an influencer. He's not a journalist. He's not from a political party, although he's quite friendly with Bayrou. In the beginning, he was just piling us down every single intervention we went. This number is false, this number is false, why do you use insane instead of stuff, why do you do this, etc., etc. Every single intervention commented about. At some point, we considered him a spam and a troll, so we didn't feel the troll. But when we realized that basically he was taking it very, very seriously and personal, we decided to answer to him eventually and to tell him, well, you say that's too harsh, but that's our way of counting. You say this mark is too rough, but that's our marking system, from 0 to 5% of margin of error. That's correct. Above, it's imprecise, and above 10%. And at some moment, it worked, but 10 times what we would have expected. Meaning that, and you can have an example here, he actually answered the other internet users itself by explaining them, instead of us, the rules of le véritomètre. So he just answered people like, oh yeah, I know, this mark may look a little harsh, but indeed, if you check at the rules of le véritomètre, you could see that from 0 to 5 it's correct, and from 5 to 10 it's imprecise, and above 10 it's incorrect, etc., etc. And he was indeed, he's like a free intern, I don't know, he was very, very efficient. He became our best ally, as all of them became. So at one moment when they get involved enough, we eventually decided to ask them questions directly. François Bayrou mentioned a very strange figure about the number of employees in the woodcutting sector in Germany. Germany is way, way back in my mind and scholarship. So we didn't know where to find it. So like a joke, I used our Twitter account to ask them, friend lumberjack and statisticians, we are looking for these numbers in the wood cutting sectors in Germany. There are 800,000 employees. It took us 3 minutes to have an actual answer from Destatis, which is the official statistical institute in Germany. It was the good answer. And the guy himself wasn't a lumberjack. Indeed, he was just a guy making studies in German and translated our work. He searched it in good German and he found the answer. And it took the couple of seconds that were needed to find it and transmit us. So I would get in the same way as Benoît. The global intelligence is the intelligence in the margin that is useful at the very specific time. There was only one person needed, apart from his German teacher, but one person needed to get us this very good answer among the thousands of people that followed us. So, who watches the Watchmen? That is one of the questions that was asked to us. You're le véritomètre. Who fact checks the véritomètre? And basically the answer was anyone we allowed to. So we allowed anyone to fact check us from Twitter, Facebook, blogs, anyone. And at some moment, you can do interesting things, like breaking a taboo, which is fact-checking live the debate between François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy in between the two turns of the presidential elections. We've got an anonymous source, Laurence F., French journalist from Paris, who was asked, indeed, because of her work of live fact-checking the two finalists from the presidential election. I won't disclose the name. Just if you send me an email. And she said to leJDD.fr, at this time of the electoral campaign, I think that the candidates are settling their numbers on the very sure grounds, and I think that is preferable for fact-checking to be done after. But, Laurence, my dear Laurence, numbers are tough. As we fact-checked this intervention, this debate between François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy, we went from 2,200 followers to 16,000 in 4 hours. We had hundreds of retweets on very technical subjects such as wind power, depth, and etc., etc. Le Véritomètre almost crashed from overcharge. We couldn't access it to put the paper we wanted to publish after the debate for tens and tens of minutes. Dozens of interview demands. Congrats from people who never talked to me in the lobby of Itélé before. Free beers. This invitation to GEN 2012. Enough beans and scarves to paper my office wall and stuffed animals, fruit baskets, etc., etc. So one of the important things was that from the start to the end, we were a team. We were 5. There were with me Marie Coussin, which is data journalist, Nicolas Pat, which is data journalist, Grégoire Normand and Pierre Lebovici. We all worked together. And at no moment, we stepped aside and said, well, that's my fact-checking, dude. Don't criticize it like that. I get the good numbers. So we were a team. We were a rock band with laptops. And with, of course, iPhones and Android phones. But basically, we were a team. We didn't exist as a single journalist. We existed behind the project and behind the method that we put forward and that we made clear to every of our readers and viewers. So, as fans of the 1970s rock may know, there was no Mark Bolan, although he thought it, or Tony Visconti. There was T-Rex. There was no Marie Coussin, Nicolas Pat, Sylvain Lapoix, Pierre Lebovici, or Grégoire Normand. There was Le Véritomètre. We did this, and in the end, we were the winning team. Because let's do the math. So I know that's big math, especially this part. When you take out the ego from the journalist, being a team and being a process of getting connection with the data, opening it, and getting everything that comes from your viewers. When you give a method which is 100% clear and understandable by your viewers, Einstein said that any theory that you can explain to a 12-year-old is a bad theory. That's exactly the same. Any principle of editing that you can explain to any of your readers from anywhere in the country, in the place, in the world you can reach is not a good method. And if you multiply it by the power of your readers, which is, to me, the biggest database of experts you could ever had in your life as a journalist, you get empowerment of the readers who actually realize they matter and they can matter to journalists, even if the journalist is behind this umbrella of the project, of the fact-checking project, which is Le Véritomètre. And you get credibility for the professionals. Because at some time, the readers actually were defending us from other readers that were doubting us. So we won from this. That's all I had to say, except that now Le Véritomètre, it's been a great experience. It was 1 year of work for 3 months of madness and 1 night of incredible attention from our colleagues. The very funny thing is that TV is still strong. And I had to add that we talked about powerful and connected TV. We could have done this live on actual TV screens. The only thing that prevented us from doing this is that the 2 channels that were broadcasting it, TF1 and France 2, didn't want it to alter their stream. We couldn't eventually put even our tweets on the TV screen. So most of the aspects that are limiting us are simply in the journalist's mind and in the way they perceive the media and their readers. So if you want to talk more about this, I'm available on this different mentions and stuff. I also can talk without slides, and I'll be glad to discuss it with you. If you send me an email, and I'll share with you this PowerPoint, of course.
Thanks a lot, Sylvain. Two quick questions. What's is really ego the main difference between data journalists and traditional journalists, or is there some other differences?
Is really what?
Ego. You mentioned the ego.
No, ego is the difference between a connected journalist and aging journalist.
Okay. And my second question is, what lesson did you get from this experience? How would you do it now better?
That's one thing we always say to our colleagues who wonder how to do a véritomètre here and there. We had to learn everything from scratch, and eventually our best guideline to do so was the return from the Facebook comments, from the tweets, etc. Our biggest force and energy to do it was that people believed in it. And what I learned from it, because I'm not a data journalist in the start, I learned to be one, is that you can interest people and involve readers and even make them come and give you information to any subject as far as you tell them why you do it. Our goal with Le Véritomètre is, and that may sound a little paradoxical, to get less numbers in public debate. Less numbers, but the same numbers. So they won't, politicians won't throw at their face the numbers like chimpanzees with their own feces. Our goal is now to know how much and how far they will use those numbers to decoy people from the ground subject. And indeed, politicians actually took part in this, and they corrected themselves, and that's our great victory, apart from involving the different readers we could reach.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Denis? Denis Teyssou is head of the Agence France Presse Media Lab. Denis,
good afternoon. So I'm not Florence, as you may notice, but I'm Denis, so Florence could not attend. Can get the slides. Yeah. So I'm going to show you the match demo, which is the word game, which is a politician quotes comparison engine that we have built with our partner from Liberation Daily. Liberation did the graphical user interface, and we did the engine, the natural language processing engine, and the content. So you have a link here if you want to give it a try. So I will start by some, sorry. Okay, we'll start by fact-checking on the through work day, which was the 1st of May. It was a bit of a controversy here in France because this is something which was used by the Vichy regime during the Second World War, and it was used by Mr. Sarkozy during the campaign. So if you perform a search in the engine about through work, you get the people who have talked about Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande. And at the bottom, going through the time, you get the original dispatch, the original news item, where the quote was actually said by Mr. Sarkozy in front of journalists. So this is a way of fact-checking the politician speech. Second example on recovery. Recovery was a keyword very much used by François Hollande during the campaign. So the engine allows to analyze the way as politicians are trying to push their message and using keywords to push their message. So if we click on the quote, so the prototype is only indexing quotes and offers. And if we go back in the context of the original news item, so we get in green the quotes, and you will notice that the natural language processing tool that we are using is tagging automatically all the person names which are in this news item. And if I click on Charles de Gaulle here, don't ask me to click anywhere else, I get directly automatically to the Wikipedia page on Charles de Gaulle. So this is a way to contextualize automatically the content with some kind of knowledge base placed elsewhere on the web. Obviously, it could be used also with other topics of or topic pages or documentation instead of Wikipedia. Another example on education. Education was a big thematic during the French campaign. And the engine allows to compare between the 2012 election and the 2007 election. That means that you can compare candidates from the same political party, or you can compare the same candidate 5 years ago to see how his speech has evaluated according to the thematic that you're looking for. Again, you get exactly the same kind of quotes indexed into the system, and you can also click on such. So geoferry was also a controversy during the campaign, after the campaign, because it was used as a symbol of being the father of a public school in France. It was used as a symbol by François Hollande, and in fact, he was also in favor of colonialism, so it was a bit of a controversy. So again, we can get automatically the page of Jules Ferry on Wikipedia. So how does it work? This is built on a natural language processing, une chaîne linguistique de traitement automatique du langage en français. So natural language processing chain of the Alpage team, which is a team from the INRIA Institute and the Paris 7 University here in France. So this chain, natural language processing chain, is giving us annotations in XML, and what we do is we transform these annotations into an unused semantic annotation here. So you can see here for this paragraph, here is the source code where we have a link to Wikipedia, automatic link. And this is based on that on semantic annotation, which is the unused new standard from the IPTC, so the International Press and Telecommunication Council. You have on the right a recent blog article from the New York Times. The semantic annotation is the type of technology that the BBC is also using to build their sports website for the Olympics, and that they did for the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup, a couple of years ago. So semantic publishing is becoming trendy in the news industry. The prototype so far, these are figures from yesterday. It has more than 50,000 quotes, more than 4,000 offers, and more than 20,000 news items from the 2007 campaign and the 2012 campaign. Next, what is next? So at AFP, we have built another graphical user interface, especially built for journalists, while the idea, we have three ideas. The main one, the first one is that instead of we are trying, in fact, to enhance the user experience by bringing back into the interface some pieces of knowledge from outside. That means that here we are able to get back, if you click on the link, we get back the snippet of the biography of Mr. Hollande within the web page, instead of bringing the user on another web page. Another work that we have performed is that at the very beginning we had very few quotes that the natural language processing engine was able to find out, and now we are able to treat anaphorase. That means that we are able to treat he said, he added, he mentioned, and then we can add all these quotes to the main author and to enhance the database. Finally, we have also a way to query between different candidates, so we can compare the political speech between up to 4 candidates in this campaign, in this last campaign. Finally, all this work has been done built on 3 research and development projects, French projects funded by the state. And that's all. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, you can ask me on Twitter if you find a Wi-Fi network.
Thank you, Denis. Just a question. How did you convince AFP to use Wikipedia? Because I remember a time where Wikipedia was a curse word at AFP.
I just did it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Dan Green? Yes. Please. Dan Green is Director for Strategic Partnership at the Bill Gates Foundation. And he will tell us how to renew the storytelling about development. Sorry, we had some changes in the program, but you will see almost all the speakers this afternoon. Thank you.
So, my name is, as you mentioned, Dan Green, and I manage the media and information grant making at the Gates Foundation. I've been there for just a little bit over a year. And I'm going to slightly switch the focus of the program because I was so impressed with the lineup and thought to myself, I've been out of journalism for about 5 years. Prior to that, I worked in journalism for about 20 years for ABC News Nightline and then overseas in South Africa. But I felt like telling this crowd of people about storytelling would actually use a Yiddish term, chutzpah. So I'm not going to necessarily do that. But what I do think might be helpful is to give a little bit of sense of what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing regarding funding, storytelling, and content creation and engagement on global development and global health issues. I generally feel like one of the important things that I realized starting this, and I think all of you realized from the work that you've been doing, is, you know, the subject of global health and development, as one person has put it, is really kind of the broccoli of news. And even when I was with Ian Katz at The Guardian, he said they call it eat your peas. At the New York Times, Aaron Pilhofer said we call it spinach. When I was at Nightline, we call it peas and carrots. It's kind of the vegetables. And when I first got into this business, someone from the MIT Media Lab who I was sitting down with said, here's what I'm concerned with as foundations come in and they actually try to fund some of the storytelling on issues like health and development. My concern is at the end of the day is you're just funding more broccoli farms. At the end of the day, if you just keep putting in money to help news organizations tell stories about health and development, that's great. That would be like just assuming that if we just keep growing more and more broccoli and we put it all on the shelves in every store, the next thing you know, everybody's just going to scoop up all that broccoli and eat it like mad. The reality is that no matter how much we put out there, increasing demand for stories about people who live on less than $2 a day in the developing world isn't an easy task. It's a real challenge that we've been struggling with. So I just wanted to outline very quickly some of the efforts that we've been making. This is clearly a work in progress. We're working on this. Miguel Castro down here in front is a new colleague of ours who works in the London office, and some of you know that we've been working on this and we're always open to ideas and suggestions. Here's just a little sampling of some of the work that we've been trying to do. We have essentially 4 strategic initiatives in our funding that we outlined late last year. They're fairly broad. The first one is essentially to inform and engage key audiences on issues of health and development around the world. We're really trying to focus even more on engagement. I think some of that has been outlined today, and what basically giving people the opportunity to more deeply engage in that content, how they could actually participate. I know that a lot's been written and talked about in terms of what does engagement mean, and I realize the definition of that varies from everything from, even at the School of Journalism at the University of Missouri, outlined engagement in 3 levels: outreach, conversation, and then participation or contribution. I think that what we're basically trying to do is say, look, we understand creating platforms for engagement is not a necessarily easy thing to do. Whether it works or not, particularly whether it works on some of these broccoli stories, isn't easy. It's something that we'd really like to support the experimentation of, because we realize some of this can work a hell of a lot easier on stories around, you know, the Olympics or celebrities or royals. The second area that we really focus on is better activate research, and that's really our data visualization focus, and we've been working with a handful of organizations to really support interactive data visualization on issues around health and development. The third is elevating voices, and that really is about, in this changing media landscape, how can we help media organizations bring out the voices, particularly in the developing world, to make sure they're part of the conversation, to give voice to those who don't have a voice. Are there ways that we can support that effort? And the last one is something that we've been working with other funders on, which is to help some of our grantees and help media organizations kind of better improve measurement of what they're doing. Understanding at the end of the day that stories on health and development will never get the kind of numbers that you'll get with other kinds of stories. But we also know that being more informed about measurement will be really helpful in terms of better engaging people and informing people on these issues. So here's a few examples of some of the work that we've been doing. we have a grant to The Guardian on the global development site. As you can see, three principles that we've been following in our funding is essentially that we want to be transparent. So you can see up there it says supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That was something The Guardian insisted upon, and we agreed that that was a good idea to just let people know transparently that we actually are supporting this effort. The two other principles that we use is editorial independence. The Guardian has complete independence to tell the stories they want to tell, what they want to tell in the global development space. That's not our call. And the editorial integrity is essential. So if they tell stories that are positive or negative on health and development, that point to areas, whether they're corruption or failed investments or even about Gates Foundation funding that isn't working, they should feel free and they should be able to do that. We feel accountability and accountability journalism is really important in the work that we're trying to do in terms of advancing health and development. And again, it's an example of The Guardian explaining exactly why the Gates Foundation is supporting this work. Essentially, you know, as news organizations struggle with their allocating resources, basically what we've tried to say is, look, we understand these stories will never get the kind of attention in terms of interactive tools like the Olympics and that amazing stuff that was shown by the BBC. How will it compete? Are there ways that we can support that? Obviously, it's up to the news organization. As I like to say, and as others have told me before, you can't really tell journalists what to do. I know that. We can tell news organizations what we fund, and if there's alignment, that's great. And so we support All Africa and allafrica.com and some of that work and trying to support their effort to create some of their own content. Again, they have their editorial independence. And an interesting area, we funded ABC News, and this is an area that we were really quite fascinated that ABC News came forward and said, we would love your support if you'd be willing to fund just some production expenses because we care a lot about global health issues. What was really fascinating about it is then they decided all on their own to launch a challenge to sign up 1 million moms to actually support health and development. It's just an interesting development to me. If you told me when I worked at ABC News 10 years ago that they might do a challenge to actually get people to engage and support health and development issues, I'd say you're crazy. It just seems to be an interesting evolution to where some media organizations are now more openly embracing the fact that if we're going to participate and create engagement platforms on these issues, if we can allow people to more deeply engage in issues that they care about, then so be it. I think it's an interesting area that we're seeing more organizations get comfortable with. Another is with NPR. They came to us and said, look, we thought we learned a lot of lessons from Andy Carvin in the Arab Spring. We'd love to figure out if we put a social media person full-time on global health issues and we really tried to engage in that conversation and facilitate those platforms, could we do it? And it's an area that we supported. And some of their storytelling, like This Is the Beginnings, they decided to do a series that we've supported on the first days of life around the world and what are the challenges. The other areas I pointed out is data visualization. This example is actually from one that we do in U.S. education is another area of the Gates Foundation. We supported a chronicle on higher education to fund a very deep data visualization that they wanted to do about why do 4 million kids in the United States enter college and only 2 million graduate? What happens to them if they did a deep analysis and data visualization that drilled down on every school in the country and broke it down by race and gender, et cetera? It gave people a chance to delve, and they found that was very successful. And then also Univision is one that we've been funding on some of their work around education. The last thing is we've really been trying to concentrate in partnering with the Knight Foundation and other funders on measurement and measuring engagement through media. It's an area where we would really like to support some of our grantees. It's something that I'll talk about at that session at the end on Friday, and that is we've been working with various media organizations who've been helpful, the New York Times, The Guardian, NPR, and also with web analytics teams and others to say, if you really wanted to begin to measure what you were doing, how might you do measuring engagement? A team of advisors came up with areas, and 4 areas that we've talked about, which is community, consumption, contribution, and change. Community being your audience and understanding who you're reaching, consumption being the penetration, contribution being participation, and if you could really start to measure participation and contribution of your audience, the last one is change. Realize that kind of hits the border for journalists, but as we start to think about what is it that ultimately makes audience and inspires audiences to change either their perceptions or ultimately maybe even their behavior through content is an area that we've been really working on and how we can support media to do that. And that's something I'd be happy to talk to anyone as we move forward. And since I've touched on all of those, the last one, and I'll let folks answer questions. We've also been funding and supporting something along with the MacArthur Foundation and with the Ford Foundation, something called the SparkWise tool. It's in beta testing at the moment. If anybody wants to go to it, it's sparky.se. And it's essentially a tool where we've been they came to us and wanted to develop a tool that said if we really wanted to measure content and impact and we wanted to use something further than Google Analytics, how could we create an easy dashboard and tool where people could drop in things that they wanted to measure about their content. It's an open source. You can go to it, download it, play with it, and it will continue to evolve. They're essentially trying to treat the tool like an application where they'll continue to adapt and add basic library and apps where you would say, okay, one of the things we want to measure is, voting, and we also want to measure content related to voting or other types of participation, and they'll measure it in all kinds of forms. So you'll see it where it could even put in a specific piece of content and measure that over time and see how that actually engages with folks. And that's essentially where we are in terms of some of our funding. As I said, it's a work in progress, and we look forward to the conversation over the coming days.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Quick question, Dan. How do you choose the media to invest in?
So it's a really good question. A lot of it really has to do with, first of all, the foundation is very clear about, when I first joined the foundation early last year, and they asked me would I want to manage a new portfolio of media-related grant making. What was clear to me is they were obviously, what was good is they decided to hire a former journalist to do it, but the other part they wanted to be clear about is we have some very specific goals which are targeted towards addressing the challenges of people who live on less than $2 a day. We would like to ensure that the media grant making that you do is really targeting to inform and engage people around those issues. The foundation is very much interested in global health and development, so it's really about addressing those. So if someone would come to us and say, would you support our effort to inform and engage people on cancer? It wouldn't be something that the foundation would support. And they're fairly honest about the fact that it's not that cancer research isn't important, that cancer isn't important. It's that we have a very specific focus. And we want to make sure that in that focus, what they saw was, as the media landscape is changing, how are we going to ensure that citizens are really informed and engaged on some of these challenges? Because we're never going to be able to make progress if we don't actually have people informed and engaged. So it's really about aligning to some of those areas where we're focusing, and then also targeting in terms of areas where we feel like the information is really not as robust as it could be. So those are some of the decisions that we make along the way.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And the last speaker before the water break is Grig Davidovitz. And he will talk about web design.
Okay, good day, and I know you're a bit tired after many interesting presentations, so we have 15 more minutes, and I hope it will be a little more interesting if I'll start with a story, if this works.
Just to reboot the computer and we'll... No. hurry up because they will have hot water.
Had a dramatic beginning, and now I hope it works. So I'm starting with a story, the true story that happened about 2 years ago. I was on my way to Italy, and it was the evening before, and I suddenly understood that I don't have any guide for Italy for the trip, and I have a Kindle on my iPad, so I searched for a guide for Italy and found the rough guide to Italy 2010, downloaded it for half of the price that it would have cost in the just a second, in the store, and started reading it at home, and then in the airplane, and then the hotel in Italy. And because I wanted to know also things when I was outside, you know, about the square, about restaurants, I was going around with this bag, this red bag with an iPad inside, and I was very afraid that it would be stolen. And suddenly I said to myself, wait a second, there's a Kindle application in my iPhone. So I downloaded the Kindle application for my iPhone. I identified myself with my name and password. And then they said, well, you have all these books that you bought. Do you want any of them? I said, yes, of course. I want the rough guide for Italy. And from that moment on, I had the first version on my iPad, and I had the same book on my iPhone. So when I was in my room, I was reading it very comfortably on my iPad, and when I was around strolling the streets of Italy, I was reading it on the iPhone. And one day I was opening the iPhone in Florence, and I got this announcement that you can see that is written by a technical person saying, and I'll read to you because probably it's, sorry, saying, sync to furthest location. You are currently at location 13475. The latest, wait a second. From, it was from iPad, location number 147560. Do you want to move to that location? Basically, in human language, it said, you accessed this book from your iPad yesterday. Do you want to go to that point? And this is a very good example of the fact that basically the book that I'm accessing is nowhere and it's everywhere. It's on the iPad, it can be on the iPhone, it can be on my desktop, it can be in the Kindle. Remember, Kindle started as something that was meant to read books. And the point that I'm making is that the Kindle is not about the Kindle. The Kindle is about the experience of reading books. And basically, the book is somewhere in the cloud, and I'm accessing it by different devices. Where the eyeballs are, Kindle wants to be, and the device is merely the gate to the cloud. So I think this is a very important lesson for the newspaper industry, and what we have to ask ourselves is, what is the news experience? It's not a coincidence that the first experience that was solved is the book experience. It's a very simple experience of reading text. It's like thoughts from thoughts to thoughts. The journalistic experience is much more complicated, and it's much harder to understand what the essence of that experience is. So we are just finding out, and just to quote someone on that, I will quote someone that accidentally speaks here on Friday, is the founder of Google News, Krishna Bharat. And he said, when journalists think they are producing content pure and simple, they are wrong. In the same way that a Starbucks barista thinking she simply produces coffee is wrong. You think you're there for the coffee, but you're really there for the full experience, the music, the collegiality, the reading space, the aroma, the brand. You pay for coffee, sure, but the whole experience is what counts. The same is true for news. It's an overall experience rather than a simple product. The challenge for publishers is bringing the modestly implicit navigation of a print product, a magazine-like experience, into the patterns of digital consumption. So that's what I want to speak about now, which is basically what is that experience and why journalism is not only presenting information. So there are some slides that I'm going to skip just to make sure you get it to your coffee to your water, sorry, at time. I want to speak about an AP study that was done 3 years ago in 2008. Was published in the Columbia Journalism Report, and they checked the news consumption of 1,000 young adults, and the results were very surprising for them. What they said is that participants showed signs of news fatigue. They appeared debilitated by information overload and unsatisfying news experience. Even more, the study participants said they wanted news organizations to display less content in order to highlight the essential information. Young people want the site design to signal what's really important instead of being confronted by a bewildering array of choices. And if we look basically at the beginning of the web, you can see, I think, in a way, many news sites today, how they evolved from this. This is the first page of the web. In the beginning it says the World Wide Web is a wide hypermedia, everything there is on the web is linked to this page. This is how it started. And I think that you can see today that, yeah, we added columns and we added some pictures, but sometimes you can really see the sites of today evolving from that. And then we had a different start, and we had that. And I think one of the most important things in the iPad, that for the first time it showed that content, digital content, can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be ugly. And they did that partially by learning a lot from print. This looked very much like a cover of a magazine, because this is a magazine application. And people really like that. I think that what we are seeing now is a process in which the perfect product has basically to learn from here how to integrate into the web ocean, because the iPad, most of the applications are not yet integrating correctly in the web ocean of sharing and searching and all that. And I think that the perfect product has to learn from the iPad how to create a content experience. So how to create that content experience, I'm going to speak about a few things. One, lower the information density. This is a chart of the evolution of newspapers. We started with that, which is basically like a book. And then we went forward for that, which basically said, maybe you remember these newspapers from, you know, ancient pictures. They said something like, well, the most important page is the front page. Conclusion, let's put everything on the front page. And you had like 20, 30 different articles and ads on the first page, because that's the most important page. Does it remind you of something? That's the very paradigm of many websites today. And then we evolved, and this is very interesting because it evolved pretty much exactly like on the web today. The first thing that changed in this display is that when you had dramatic news, then editors understood, well, we have to change that. We can't just display that normally. And then you had this kind, that's an example from the New York Times when the Allies invaded Normandy, the beginning of the end of the Second World War. Then you have the main story that is very, very big, and you have a package of things that are connected. And then in the end we have today's newspapers. Just as an example, I took the Guardian, but it can go for many of the newspapers, in which the page has a very, very clear identity. So what happens today, in a sense, is that we are taking beautiful stories and we are just crashing them into this machine that all that it takes out is links. And that is why, when I was speaking last year at the Washington Post about some of the concepts I'm presenting here, I was just shocked by one of the editors that said, well, but nobody will come to our site anymore. They will only consume us through Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms. And that's exactly right. If all you have to offer is a bunch of links, you have no added value to other places that people are able to read links in. And that's just an example, another example from a newspaper in the States. Just look, this is the main feature on the web. Look how it is presented. Look how this main feature is presented on print. It's beautiful, it's big, it has these small things that connect, it has all sorts of things. It's not generic like, like this presentation. So if I fast forward for a bit, this is just an example from the Huffington Post that does a very good good job in the upper part of the site. This is another example from, but I'm not skipping this, just 1 second. This is a very good example for that, I think, from the Huffington Post. That's 8 years after the 9/11 attacks. And what they did is that they only put a picture. There's no headline, there's nothing. It's a moment of silence. And I think that this moment of silence is as much as journalism as having a headline saying, you know, America learned its lesson, and so on. So it's important not only to lower the information density, but also to create this news show. And basically what I'm going to say today is that it's crucial to set the editors free. to give them the freedom to do what? I'll give a few examples because we don't have so much time. One thing is to create drama. And you know, that is something that is happening on print. These are some examples from the elections of when Obama was elected, for instance, in the Guardian. And we are seeing that already happening on the web. So that's I will show you now a few ways in which websites covered the killing of Bin Laden. So that's the front page of the homepage of the normal New York Times. That's the page when Bin Laden was killed. That's the normal Guardian. That's when Bin Laden was killed. That's the normal Telegraph. That's when Bin Laden was killed. It took them 6 hours to put that up, 6 hours. Before that, they had a main story, Bin Laden was killed, and by that there was this sport event, someone, you know, doing something around. And that's the Huffington Post in a normal day, and that's the Huffington Post when Bin Laden was killed. And you see here, when you shout too much in a normal day, then when you really want to shout, it's a bit hard. But this is not really a solution, because what happens here basically is that there are a few templates. So you have the normal template, and then you move to dramatic template. But journalism and presenting content is much more complicated than just showing normal day as opposed to a dramatic day. And if you only remember one thing from this presentation, I would ask you to move the template to the article level. So there is no template for the page. The template moves to the article level, and I'll give you an example from a site that we have just we launched 3 months ago. It's called The Times of Israel. It's mainly for people who are interested in the Middle East, in Israel, and also for Jews in the United States. Most of the traffic comes from the United States. So what you see here is basically this idea of moving the template to the article level. This is the home page, and then if I go to the back end, what I basically see is exactly like a Lego. I see all the different stories that are part of the homepage. So you can see here, this is that story, this is this story, and they correspond. From that moment on, I can do whatever I want with the stories according to what I've planned. So let's see what kind of freedom editors need. So one thing they need is to make things dramatic. So I move this from here to the 6-column area, I press publish, and in a second it looks like that, instead of looking like this, if you remember how it was before. So that's one thing. Another need is to highlight the best element, meaning that, you know, anybody who worked in print knows that the editing starts by seeing what kind of material you have, and you create the pages according to that material. That's basic in print design. That's an example from a newspaper in Australia that they had a very big sandstorm, so they put the whole cover of the newspaper on this very unique photograph they had. And this is very important because, I'll just go to point 3, the common way people are consuming news sites is homepage, article page, and back. And when you highlight the best element of the article at the homepage, you increase the chance of people consuming it, and you put the best material on the homepage while creating a fulfilling scanning experience. So that you can do when you can approach each of the articles separately. The problem today, again, is this template that is fixed. So if I take an example from The Guardian, that's how the main story looks like. This is the big picture, and this is a small picture, and this comes with no picture. So if the story here is Pope edges away from condom ban, if you have a wonderful picture of the Pope with some condoms in his back, you can't put it on. All you can do is just take the picture and put it here. So, but when you move to this Lego game that I'm presenting, and basically you can see that also on Facebook, there is no template for the newsfeed of Facebook. Each of the information parts in that appears according to what it has. So you have here a picture-based thing, a video, and so on. So when you move to what I'm going to show is that basically you can access each of the different articles and decide what kind of media I want to present with. So if I chose the first article, for example, and I'm changing from picture to video, but I can have maps, gallery of pictures, whatever I have in the article, then what happens is that you will see the same article with a video. And if people are pressing, then you can actually see the video. The last thing that I want to show here is to create information packages. Basically, creating information packages is a big part of journalism. And you know, when you're in the newsroom and you have a story to cover, you think about all the different angles. And what you can do is that this is very important because the information is fragmented, that people don't like to read extremely big stories. Basically, to make it short, I would say that it effectively works as a mind map of the story. So you have the main story, you have analysis, you have reactions, you have whatever you want. And we are seeing these packages online evolving, but they are very, very poor because you see things like that, photo gallery and then a headline. That's anti-journalism. If you have a photo gallery, you have to put it in front of the eyes of the people. And this is another example from the Guardian and the links that they have there. You have here a link that says, here is a video. Well, if you have a nice video, I want to see it. So to conclude, what you can actually do is that when you approach one of the articles, you can create packages by adding articles, you can see here, and then you can choose for each article how you want it displayed, and the result is a package in which you can see each of the articles of the different things that you want to have. Now, I'm really running short of time here, so what I want to say lastly about this approach is that you have seen, I think, in the previous presentation, the Boston Globe approach. What they actually did is they moved the template to the module level. So you have all these modules on the page, and when you change the page, the modules rearrange themselves to catch the right thing. This is not enough. You have to move the template to the article level, and then all the decisions that are reached by the editor, if the editor says my main story comes with a video, it is automatically translated to the parallel Lego piece that is good for the mobile. I didn't have time to show you all this second part of the mobile, but I thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, and I think we'll have a 15 minutes break. Thank you. 10 minutes break.